Budge is a subtract.
That's all right. Strategic.
Oh my gosh.
Strategic.
Strategic.
There you go.
Strategic sports leader who has played a big key role building the ASB Classic and Australia Open FIFA brands globally. Karl is about to bring one of the most exciting surf events New Zealand has ever had, the Piha Pro. Karl, welcome to Groundbreaking Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me this week.
Nice to be here, young fella.
So I want to start off with some lightning round questions so everyone can get to know you. What is the strangest food you've ever eaten?
I lived in China, so I've eaten a lot of strange food. Probably duck's feet. Horrible.
Crunchy?
You have to chew through horrific webbing only to be rewarded with bone. So it's not overly good. It's pretty grisly. And it was covered in a mustard sauce, which was, really grisly. At least chicken's feet usually come in nice sauce.
Did it have any, meat?
No. I don't think it had any nutritious value at all.
From it?
You literally eat the whole thing. It's and it's a delicacy there. So you're like, it's a big thing that they have all the time at lunch. And also a whole toad, an entire toad. That was like, when you go to like KFC and it's literally imagine that being an entire toad sitting on your plate.
Toad?
Yeah, like a little frog. Yeah, it was horrific.
Wow.
Yeah, and I vomited afterwards. It was grisly.
What is your favourite city in the world besides Auckland?
Would say Auckland, so well done. Istanbul or Paris. Epic cities.
Okay.
Maybe Barcelona too.
What is something we could not find about you online?
Robert probably knows a heap around that sort of stuff. I was in the choir at school. That's probably unknown. Can't sing.
No? What did you do?
Sung. Poorly. I think I had a very understanding teacher. I was about your age, so I was trying to do anything, I think.
So where did you grow up, and what was your favourite memory as a kid?
I grew up originally in a place called Pukekohe, which is about half an hour out of Pukekohe, on a farm. It was pretty cool growing up on a farm. I had my own rugby posts and my own cricket pitch. So I that's probably where my love of sport started. And I used to love I had a tree that I used to sit under, and you'd eat Mickey Mouse ice creams, or like the Bubble-O Bill of today, like that. So they look like Mickey, and the nose was bubblegum.
Did you make go-karts or anything?
We had little, and they weren't motorized ones, but they were little wooden ones that you'd roll down the hills in, and you could drive the truck and the tractor when you were 6 years old, which was pretty cool. It was fun. It was a good place to grow up.
What did you think you were going to be growing up?
I always wanted to be a sports person, but apparently I wasn't very good. So I probably started looking at being a teacher, to be honest. Loved working with kids, so I wanted to be a teacher.
Did you teach at all?
I worked at an after-school place, which basically revolved around me practicing my rugby goal kicking, and the kids I was looking after would go and get the ball and bring it back to me. It was the best job. I can't believe I actually got paid for that.
Wow.
Mm.
You decided to leave school at 16. What led you to that?
I don't really know. School wasn't really for me. I've always done things differently to everybody else. I'm not the brightest human on the planet. but I think I've always been quite savvy with what I've done, and so I think me sitting, I was never going to care about learning English or maths or science when I was never going to be able to use it in my real world life. So yeah, I sort of saw an opportunity to go and do something a little bit differently. I wanted to go and be a professional sports person at that time. So yeah, it was really about trying to follow my passion, and luckily enough, I discovered early enough that I wasn't very good at sport and jumped on the other side of the fence.
You've had an interesting career. Can you tell me about that journey?
Yeah, from dropping out of school at 16, I've been very lucky. I think a lasting memory for me is my school teacher said to me one day, Karl, talking sport's never going to get you anywhere, and that really annoyed me, and so I wanted to really go and prove him wrong, and that's all I've really ever done since. And so I've been pretty lucky that, from little old Pukekohe in New Zealand, I've been lucky enough to live in Doha, in Istanbul, Melbourne, London, Beijing, and travel all around the world with sport, and worked with some pretty cool organisations, met some pretty epic people, and been very, very fortunate that I get to be paid for doing something that I would be doing in the pub with my friends anyhow. It's pretty cool.
You talk a lot about important titles, things that are connecting with people. Can you tell me more?
Is that the little things that we do with the players and I like? Yeah, I think when you get to a certain level, the big stuff doesn't matter anymore. So if I look at Serena Williams as an example, she's the most well-known female athlete on the planet, one of the most well-known athletes on the planet. She owns the Miami Dolphins. She owns a big chunk of UFC. She is worth more money than I'll ever know what to do with. So for me, the big things for her, she's used to. She gets them all the time. She can buy them. She can do whatever she wants. So for me, to stand out, I think the little things make a difference. So, and I think that translates to everything in business. It's sitting down. If we look at Robert as an example outside, sitting down and having a chat one-on-one with Robert over a whiskey is going to be far more impactful than standing up in a lecture theatre talking to him. And so I think if you can figure out what motivates that person, what's actually going to be really important to that person, then it gives you an opportunity to do things a little bit differently.
Who do you admire for successful disrupting the sports business?
Good question. UFC, I think, have done an unbelievable job. From 10 years ago, it not really being a sport to being one of the biggest sports in the world now. One that I really, really like, and no one will know about this one really. There was a thing a couple of years ago called Nitro Athletics, and it kind of flipped athletics on its head. So, I don't know if you've ever seen a 10,000 meter race, but it's running 10,000 meters. It's a lot, 10 kilometers. Takes about 25 minutes. Over that whole event, you might have 10 seconds that are actually interesting. The rest of the time is really boring. It's just people running around a track. Everyone falls asleep during it. So they did a thing where every lap, the person in the last place was knocked out of the race. So now every 800 meters, you had a moment of reward and consequence. And I think that was really cool. I think if all sports need to create those moments that energize people and do create moments that matter more often.
What changes and developments are you keeping a close eye on?
I think sport's really challenging at the moment. Do you play sport?
Yes, I play soccer and swimming.
You do soccer and swimming. I think those are two sports 20 years ago that a kid your age probably wasn't playing too much of in New Zealand. So I think we're changing. I think we're spending more money than we ever have. I don't buy into the notion that we're not spending money on sport anymore. I think we're spending more money than we ever have. We're just not doing it in traditional ways. So gaming's so big, what esports is going to become. I think technology in general is going to be a real change. I think we've constantly got to be looking for motivation from outside of our industry too. It's, I think there's some other industries that are entertaining us, that are entertaining people better than what sport is at the moment.
Can you tell me how the Piha Pro World Surf came about?
About 3 years ago, I was in Germany and I was having a random chat to a friend of mine in tennis. I just started my business at the time, and talking around what I wanted to be doing and the like, and he sort of said, "Oh, my mate is the president of the World Surf League. You should have a chat to him about an event in New Zealand." I was like, "I reckon that could work." And so we just really a random conversation on a bus ride in Germany has spawned something that's going to be pretty exciting for New Zealand, I think, over the next few years.
Did everything go to plan when you were developing the idea?
No, not at all. I think starting anything very rarely ever goes to plan. No, we've had heaps of setbacks. It's taken us 3 years to get here. The event originally started in Raglan, not in Auckland. And so, there's been a lot of change over the last 3 years. It's a pretty big project. It's a fair few $1 million that we've got to put into running this event. And so I think anything where you're building something that doesn't exist from scratch in an area that doesn't have any infrastructure in a sport that's untested in New Zealand, it's a pretty full on concept. So loads of stuff's gone wrong, but we're also pretty pumped around what's about to take place.
How do you keep focused on the right things when building an event out?
I'm not sure I do, to be honest. My team would probably say I don't. I don't know. I think you fundamentally know we're all our own consumers, and I was really lucky. I worked for a chap called Chris Simpson when I was about 18, 19, and every Friday we used to sit down and have a couple of beers and go, what are we doing this weekend? How do we make money off it? I think it was a really good learning, and I've taken that everywhere I've gone in the world of sport. We're all our own consumers, and so I think understanding what we would want to do out of an event is ultimately what the people that are going to be paying want to be doing as well. And so, I've been pretty fortunate that, I think I'm quite in touch with what people want as an entertainment experience, and I've been able to try and put that, prioritise that above everything else. And I think if you do that, you'll succeed.
What have you learned about convincing key stakeholders to work with you when you're a new business?
Look, I think my best ideas haven't got the support that I thought they would. So I think it's something I'm still trying to learn now. There's passion and clearly articulating your vision, I think, is really important. I think the more people that know what you're trying to do, by nature, I think most people want to try and help. So I think, letting people know what your vision is and what you're trying to create, I think is really important. But I think that's something you always keep learning. I don't think you ever master relationships. I don't think you ever master how to win at business, how to succeed in sales. I think it's a constant evolution. But if you're doing something you're passionate about, if you've got a clear idea, you've done your homework and clearly articulated how you're going to make it work, and then you're passionate about its delivery, then I think you stand a pretty good opportunity to bring the stakeholders with you.
What was one of the biggest risks you have taken, and what did you learn from that?
Moving to Beijing was probably a pretty big risk. I had a pretty cushy life living in London, and I was working for the biggest women's sports organisation on the planet at the time. I was lucky enough to have a great salary. Life in London was fantastic. And an opportunity came up to move to Beijing, which I'd never been to China before, couldn't speak any Mandarin, still can't. I have no idea why I really did it, but there was something in the back of my mind that said that'll be a pretty cool experience. And I'm always a massive believer you're always a lot richer for travelling abroad, not necessarily financially, but in terms of it broadens your outlook on life, makes you understand people a whole lot better, and puts you out of your comfort zone. And I think doing that's pretty awesome. And so while it was a massive risk, it was one that I'm really glad I did.
How do you spot new business opportunities and know when you're onto a good idea?
I think good ideas breed good ideas. I'm a big fan of the I forget the name of the of what they call the theory, but ultimately having a number of projects on the go at once. Einstein, when he published the theory of relativity, in between starting it and finishing it, he published something crazy like 200 other pieces of work, which as a scientist, that's pretty phenomenal. Usually you're sort of working on one piece. And I think the notion there was that he was able to better tackle his major project by doing a whole lot of other projects at the same time. And I've kind of had that same view. I've looked across a whole range of industries and sectors and events and alike at all times. And I think you see opportunities all the time. And if you're open to if you expand your view to enable good ideas to flow through, then it's amazing how many of them are out there. There's more money in this world than there is good ideas. So I think if you can broaden yourself to try and find those good ones, you'll succeed pretty well.
We all go through hard times. What did you learn from your journey and how leaders can prep for those hard times?
Yeah, I think you've got to be really resilient. I was really lucky, to be honest. I mean this, I don't mean to sound cocky when I say it. I didn't really fail in my career. I was really fortunate coming through. I left the ASB Classic when I was 32, so 3 years ago now. And I hadn't really had a setback in that time. My career had always sort of progressed really nicely. And I was pretty cocky going into starting my own business. And I just can't stress how hard it is actually doing that. It's a different sort of stress. That you have to be really resilient. You take one step forward and go 5 back, and you're knocked over again, and then you get up again, and it's just a constant battle. But I think learning to be resilient, learning to celebrate the small successes, where it's something we don't do enough of. There's loads of wins along the journey that deserve celebrating. You stress out about a load of little things that actually don't matter, but you don't celebrate the little things that do matter. And I think it's really important that you do some of that.
What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs to help them succeed?
Be really realistic around your appetite for risk. It's no one knows how hard it is to balance that risk until you're in it, and how hard it is to deal with the stress of a risky proposition until you're in it. And so I think being really honest with yourself around what you're good at, what you're not good at, and what you're mentally capable of dealing with, I think it's a really important one for entrepreneurs to know going into a project.
What do you think is an important issue right now that is not being talked about as much as it should be?
Probably along the same lines as that last answer. I think mental health is a massive thing at the moment. It's I think it's the biggest thing facing our society at the moment. And as business owners, and entrepreneurs, your mental health is a bloody nightmare. You might have a bulletproof product that gets knocked back. Someone might beat you to the market. You get a bad review. All these things along the way, are going to test your resilience, test your resolve, no matter how good you are. And so I think that's something that we all, as the entrepreneurial spirit grows and grows. It's amazing. Kids like yourself, you're far ahead of what I ever was at your age. But I think learning to deal with the mental challenges of doing it as well and the setbacks is going to be an interesting one. I still haven't mastered that.
Just a quick question that sprang to mind. Do you prefer iPhone or Samsung?
Did Robert put you up to that one?
No.
I'm technologically illiterate, so I can't use technology at all. So I don't think I could go away from my iPhone because it would take me way too long to figure out how to phone you back on my Samsung. I'd be terrible. I'd get in trouble with my wife all the time.
What has surprised you the most from your journey thus far?
What dreaming can do. At your age, everyone dreams. At our age, they don't. And I think that's something that, we lose that ability. It gets knocked out of us. The older we get, the less we take to dream. And I think dreaming's amazing. I think, when the ASB Classic would never have become what it is today if I hadn't dreamed around what I thought it could be. Likewise, bringing surfing to New Zealand and alike. I think you've got to constantly dream. And, I don't know that's a skill that we focus in on enough. In fact, your parents usually tell you to stop dreaming. And I think it's the opposite. Always keep dreaming.
Who inspires you?
Good question.
If anyone.
There's loads of people you take inspiration from. I take loads of inspiration from chefs, which is really weird. But, I think restaurateurs these days are the true entertainers. We spend more money on dining out than we ever do going to events. And so what are they doing right around an experience when ultimately we can all eat a similar product no matter where we go? So what makes a great restaurant really awesome? Like what's your favourite fast food chain?
I don't really eat fast food.
You don't eat fast
No.
food? Okay, good. You're so much better than me as a kid. Like all of those places, to me, are ultimately the same, yet their experiences are why you become, a burger's a burger by and large. So what makes that burger so good? Why? What is the environment that's made it so awesome? So I take heaps of inspiration from that. I'm a young dad now, so I take a lot of inspiration now from other young dads that are doing cool things. There's some amazing men out there that are role models for having young daughters, and I take a lot of inspiration from them these days too. So as I'm growing a bit older and getting less hair, I start caring about things in a different way.
If you could go back in time, is there any advice you would give yourself?
I think enjoy the journey a lot more. I was a bit of a geek, mate. I worked real hard through my 20s when friends were out partying and having a good time. I was sort of grinding away, chasing the corporate ladder a little bit, which has been amazing, and it's meant that I've got, and now in my 30s, I've got a lot more flexibility to do what I want to do. But at the same time, I probably finished things before I was ready to finish them. I had an amazing life in Melbourne working for the Aussie Open. That was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and maybe I could have done that a little bit longer, where at the time I thought I was ready to finish. Travelling on the women's tour, chasing summer for a living, it was pretty awesome. And while I was over it, when it was time to finish, now that I'm back home, maybe I could have done that for a couple more years as well. I think enjoying the moment, pausing and enjoying it a little bit more rather than worrying so much around tomorrow. I think something that I probably would have done differently had I had my time again.
If you could go to any country or island in the whole world right now, where would you go and why?
Probably South Africa. It's my wife's favourite place, so that would be quite cool to go there with her. But I don't know, just go and see something different. I've never been to Africa, so I'd like to go and see some big animals. And
It's beautiful.
You've been?
Yeah, I'm from South Africa.
You're from South Africa?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'd like to do something like that. I'd like to go. I'm quarter South African, so I'd like to go and see where I originally came from.
Okay, final question. What is one question you have been surprised no one has asked you?
How have I blagged my way into where I am this long without being found out? I don't know. Everyone's always got their story and always have their own struggles and always have their uniqueness to their journey. And in my life, I get asked the same questions all the time. And I think there's always a lot more depth in behind the answers. And it'd be nice for people to want to actually know the how and the why rather than just what the headline might be.
Thank you so much for joining me, Karl. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries, young fella. You're an amazing young kid. Go well.
If people are keen to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
You can jump on my website, experiencethelive.com, or I think how you found me on LinkedIn will probably work too.
Thank you again for joining me on Groundbreaking Podcast.
Too easy, young fella. Thank you. Cheers, mate.